All right. Hello. This is the recap of weeks 16 and 17 for my data analysis job hunt. So, the summary for what I did in these 2 weeks was pretty much comprised of only two things. One was working on cold emails, not necessarily sending out cold emails, but figuring out a template and a system to do so. And then the second one is working with Python and pandas, which I know previously I said I wasn't going to do, but while I was sending out my cold email system, I sent out a few emails to some companies that I liked, and one of them responded with a Python coding interview. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to learn some Python pandas. Okay, with this button, let's move to the next slide. There we go. Table of contents, same as always. Technical skills, non-technical skills, job apps, work rate and scheduling, documentation, and other. The majority of what we're going to be talking about are in these two sections. These four, not much, but there's a few things. So technical skills, I did work a little bit on SQL and Tableau, but it really didn't make up a large portion of my work time in these last 2 weeks. So we're really only going to talk about Python. For Python, as I said before, I sent out a cold email. I got a response asking me to do a Python coding test, even though, not even though, yeah, I got asked to do a Python coding test. And I was like, I haven't done Python in a while. And I also, I've been working on SQL and Tableau mainly. So then I looked up, okay, what are some data analysis Python questions? And all the questions that came up were using pandas, which even though I have previous machine learning experience in Python, I didn't use pandas. I only used NumPy and a few other libraries. No pandas at all. So before I even got the test, I was working on pandas a little bit, kind of understanding how it works. And you can ask a question and then have a solution in pandas and in SQL, which is really nice, so I can still use similar thinking that I've been practicing in SQL. For pandas, the syntax is of course different, and there's a few different other things, but that was nice. I do want to mention a few things that I learned in pandas, which fortunately I thought it would just kind of pop in my head right now, but it hasn't, because it's been a couple days. Other than the fact that you can use it sort of in parallel with SQL, with learning how to do queries and stuff like that. I guess the things that I learned would be too specific. I could go over, I know how to group by, I know how to look at what data types the tables have, I know how to use the apply function. I learned how to circumnavigate the apply function when you want to reference something that's not in the row that you're calculating on. That was the big struggle I had with the previous interview, or with the coding interview that I did. That took me a while to figure out, but I wrote it in terms of a class, stuck the data frame as a dynamic variable, so I could reference that in the apply function. I don't know if there's a faster way to do it. I don't know how somebody would have done it in SQL. But yeah, what else did I learn? Oh, side note from Python, I had to relearn how to use GitHub a bit for what was it? Copying the repository, cloning the repository. That was the terminology. As well as doing commits and pushes, which I messed up terribly at the beginning. I still was able to figure out, but now the interviewer can see, this guy made 10 commits. What happened there? So, but learned it, so good with it now. Other stuff that I learned with pandas, I don't know. So, trying to use this time to reflect on it. So I will spend a little more time, even though it makes the quality of this presentation a whole lot worse. But that's not the purpose of me making this presentation. Oh, yes, of course, documentation, as well as like the, 3 double quotes at the beginning. Can write my name, my email, as well as instructions for how to use the file. I also wrote down some questions I had and how the file could be improved and some possible drawbacks of it. And then, of course, just doing docstring. Not of course. And then doing docstring documentation where I'm describing each of the functions and parameters and variables inside of my class. What else did I learn? Oh yeah, ChatGPT. Oh my god, it is so useful. It saved me so much time. Let's say there was something I knew how to do it, or I knew how to say it in English, but I didn't know the implementation of Python. Type it in English in ChatGPT, and most of the time it would give me an answer that worked. A lot of the time I had to do some follow-up questions. Sometimes it wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it was way quicker than using Stack Overflow. Oh, it was very nice. What else did I learn? Oh yeah, some components of a program that there are to consider. First one, it works. That's probably the most important. 2, you have readability. You can make a file that works, but it can be not very readable. And from what I've heard, most of the time, or a code is read more than it's written. People spend more time rereading it than just creating it the first time. So it's more important to have it readable than it is to like type it out fast and stuff like that. Some other components are runtime, how long it takes to run, as well as memory usage. And then the 5th one is its ability to generalize or adapt if things change. An example would be, let's say you wanted to write code where one person is counting from 1 to 10, or 1 to 100, and every time a multiple of 3 shows up, you want him to say fizz. So you could write a code to do that, but thinking ahead and thinking, okay, what if this number changes from 3 to something else? You could easily write in a little functionality or organize the code in such a way where you only have to change one number. Let's say you have, multiple constant equals 3. You could just change that number to 5 if you want to change multiple 5. So those are the 5 things I think that I thought about. I tried working on runtime and memory for the coding thing, but I got some answers in terms of checking how fast it was, but was not really able to make any improvements on how fast it was, how much memory it used. But as for generalizing, I was able to generalize on most parts except for this weird time zone edge case, which I decided to leave out because I didn't want to spend too much time on it. Yeah, I think that's all I'll go for now. That was a lot of talking on this slide. I'm glad I did it though. I'm glad I thought about it. So I can improve my code in the future. Alright, moving on to the next slide. Non-technical skills. I did some work on all 3 of these this time. The first time ever, maybe. So we got, first up, our behavioral interview questions. The reason I'm working on this a lot more now is because when I had the coding interview and I want to be talking with this guy while I'm going over the code. However, in my previous experience, I had an interview like that before, and there's no behavioral interview questions. I was simply just going over my code. So may not be used for that interview, but I do maybe have another interview coming up. I still have to look at the text from the guy. But he asked for an interview. It seemed like, yeah, I don't know. But I got to have these questions in because not having these stories written out was a big reason I failed my, the last data analysis interview I had. So I gotta get these down. I worked a little bit on a few different questions, as well as salary expectation. I'll give you a quick story about this, which will be relevant on future slides. I think I could have left out that'll be relevant on future slides part, because one drawback from my stories right now is I think they're too in depth. I need to get them more succinct. So the story about me researching the salary expectation question. I am out with my buddy at a nightclub, and he's talking to some guy, and he knows, my friend knows I'm looking for a data analysis job. He's talking to some guy. I don't know what he says. I didn't ask him. Oh, yeah, in the future. Again, I think I should have left out that little portion, just a little thought that pops in my head, because it's not very relevant to the story. But I'm out with my buddy at a nightclub. He starts talking to some guy that's at a table. And then later Nick calls me over like, hey, come here. This guy's looking for a data analysis position for his consulting firm. So I talked to the guy for a little bit, and he asked me, what are your salary expectations? Me, I'm like, $60,000. And the consulting guy, he says, yes, we can do that so quickly, which basically tells me I messed up. I undershot the number a lot. And Nick told me after, he's like, dude, yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh, I don't know. So after that, I realized, okay, this salary expectation question could have a huge sway on my salary. My sister, when she was looking to be a teacher in Arizona, she was able to get an extra $7,000 on her salary. Her justification being was living expenses. And one of my other buddies, he makes $15,000, and his coworker, who I believe does the same work. So this could have a large influence on my salary and my standard of living. So that's why I researched that question. What I learned, at least don't reply with just a number. Reply with a range, at least. Then there's some other things you can do. You can judge your salary expectations based on living expenses, your prior salaries, as well as what the market's currently going for. So, yeah, those are the main things. Yep. Also, my to-do, continue answering some questions. Practice that optoelectronics internship story, as well as I was listening to a podcast about behavioral interviews, and I don't remember what her expertise title is called, but I'll just say behavioral interview expert suggested doing mock interviews. Shameless plug for her. That she can give you really honest feedback, since she's got a real good understanding of what other people's why can't I say this word? Behavioral I really gotta stop after saying hey so I can get the Euro part in. So she has a lot of experience with judging other people's behavioral interview skills and what their stories sound like and whatnot. So you can give some honest feedback, and also it's more realistic in the sense that it's not like you're just recording it on your phone or talking to a family member where you would be significantly less nervous. If it's talking to a stranger, typically going to be more nervous, so it's more direct in its practice, more directly applicable to real interviews. So I am going to look into that. Don't know what the cost is. I still have to write out my stories first, which is really where that's the step I'm at. So I won't be looking for the mock interviews just now. I think it's more important to get my stories down. Speaking and presenting, I said I also want to point out my ums, so I stopped doing ums. Keeps me more composed. I started doing a weekly podcast, which I am not counting towards my hours worked since I am not working on data analysis, but I am working on my speaking, presenting skills, but I don't think it contains enough work to be considered work. Said again. I still want to go over these speaking skills. However, I believe technical skills as well as behavioral interview, just writing out the stories, is more important for now. So this is still going to be on the back burner. Storytelling. I feel like starting my hand movements is another way of just saying when I'm like thinking. I'm like, I also want to be comfortable sitting with pauses instead of just filling the gaps with ums. I don't know if this will always be a more beneficial practice to do, but for now, this is what I'm going to practice. I also could have left that out, what I said right there, because that's not part of the story I'm trying to tell with this presentation. Therefore, fluffing it up. I feel like the time to go on tangents will be on just my weekly podcast as opposed to this presentation. So, continuing what I've been working on, I want to actually put this as a reminder at the beginning of my slideshow because I do forget about this, and thinking about this has helped me tell the slides in more of a story format. Also, on my podcast, which is really not made, that it's made for the same reason I'm making this presentation. It's made so I can improve my speaking, thinking, conversational, and storytelling skills. And I feel as though posting it will keep me more focused on what I say, and therefore I will improve more quickly. That's the reason I'm doing it. I'm not doing it to tell an audience something. Therefore, it's pretty bad, to be honest. I don't even listen to them. I tried listening to one of them back. I was like, oh, this is real boring. But I may listen to them back in the future so I can like try to improve on the skills I just mentioned. And as I mentioned previously in this slideshow, that I want to consider the depth and brevity of a story to figure out how in depth or how brief I should go with a story. I feel like in this presentation I've been going too much into the depth side and leaving out, not focusing too much on being brief. So that is one thing I would like to work on. I feel like so might also be a filler. Job applications. Alright, this is the second part of the meat of this presentation. Side note from this presentation. I don't know if using the analogy of getting them into the meat of this is as PC anymore. You know, maybe if I find out a client's vegan, Don't use that analogy. Okay. So my actual applications, I sent out 7 cold emails, and 1 in-person network. I don't really know what to call it, but the guy I was talking to at the nightclub, I sent him my resume, and I believe we're scheduling an interview for later this week. So that's all the work I've done in terms of applications in these 2 weeks. I think my total number of cold emails sent out is either 8 or 9. I may have double counted, but so far out of my 8 or 9 cold emails, I've had 2 responses. So it's about a 25% response rate, and 1 sent back further steps in the job application. So it's about a 12% interview rate, which is awesome so far. Also to do for doing actual applications, nothing right now, as I still want to work on my technical skills and whatnot. So for the application process, the mail merge system, I'm going to bring you over to what I'm talking about. What mail merge system do you talk about? Oh, also, forgot to show I forgot to show this email because I wanted to show why I think I have to do a Python coding interview, even though most data analysts don't need to use it. It's because the first line I tell about myself and my skills, I mentioned using Python. So, yeah, that's probably why. Okay. Now I want to direct your attention over here. So this is the email template that I've made for sending a cold email to a recruiter or someone in a position for hiring, or has a say in the hiring of the position I'm looking for. So as you'll see, there are some words that have 2, I don't know what this symbol's called, caret symbols in between them, which is where the personalized information will go. So I have a company name, I have the recruiter name, not necessarily a recruiter, but position name, because sometimes I'll be applying to sustainability data analysis positions instead of just data analysis positions. Then I have the what I call the so I got the subject line, I have the intro. I may personalize the intro further later, but I want to focus on brevity. I am continuing to go too far in depth with this. I should just go, hit the points. Okay, so I'm actually going to restart that. I'm going to redo this. I want to get this right. So I want to direct your attention to this part of the screen, which is to this part of the screen. This is my email template that I will send to recruiters who currently have an open data analyst position instead of just applying through the job application portal. What you notice about this template is that there are some words that have carets on either side of them. This is the part where I input that information into the spreadsheet. For example, company name. I have a column for company name. I input the company name, and then when I use this mail merge extension, start mail merge, it'll input each of these companies into this slot for each email address. And then, so that's how that, I don't know what to call it, template works for still having individualized emails. And then also, I think an important note is that you could still personalize even further other than just the bare bones information. I may include a way to do a more personalized introduction. But for right now, my only really personalized line for the person is the PS line, which in this case I only wrote 2 because I did that near the end. It's still, yeah, okay, so the PS, I think it's awesome you searched and found your calling in working with people, because she used to be a tech person. And she's like, no, I prefer to work with people. She figured that out. I find that I relate to that somewhat. So I was like, okay, I'll put it in the email. Also did it for this guy. Oh, shoot. I showed all the emails. I don't want to show the emails on the video. Well, now that I think about it, the number of people that see this will be very low. And most of these emails are public anyways. So, yeah, still personalized line. And then the selling myself line, which is basically just lines that are about my skills and whatnot. I can pick 3 of them from this current pool I have, put it in, see whichever matches the job that's the job posting that I'm applying for. Yep, so that seemed pretty. If you heard of Spaghetti Go, that seemed like a spaghetti story. But we shall go on. So, yeah, I can put in all that information, send out all the emails at once to save me a lot of time. Yeah, also I want to work on a system for follow-up emails. Resume and LinkedIn, just minor updates to my resume. Networking, the one in-person network / in-person job application that I mentioned. Work rate scheduling. So these weeks work rate, I worked an average of 170 minutes per day. It's gone down for sure because of a few things. One, the main reason is because my schedule is not the same as it was before. I wasn't working on a fixed wake up time and a fixed work schedule, so got less work done per day. Sleep was probably better, but some room for improvement there, which I am going to attempt to correct. I also spend most of my time on technical skills, and then the job application itself. So yeah. Okay, so daily schedule. Today I'm working on testing a short-term work schedule, because part of the reason I was doing a work doing a whatever wake up time and a whatever work schedule is because I had not committed to a schedule, and I find it difficult for me to commit to a schedule when I don't have a set amount of time I want to commit to the schedule. So today I'm only testing a day-long schedule where I was like, wake up at 8, start work at 9, hard cutoff. If I didn't finish my morning routine, too bad. Start work 3 hours, hour and a half break, work another 3 hours, and then you're free to go off and do whatever you want. If I actually follow that schedule today, that'll be the most I've worked in a day. Yeah, but since I made a contract with myself that I'm just going to do this for today. Don't have to do it tomorrow, which makes it easier for me to commit to it. My work schedule, I've just been working on what's urgent. So cold emails and job applications, feel like it increased my motivation to work on my technical skills. Kind of, if I'm just working on that all the time, I felt like, oh, what am I doing this for? Man, I'm doing this for a job application. So when I work more on job applications, it gave me more motivation to work on those technical skills. Python, reason because I had coding test and behavioral interview because I have some potential interviews coming up. Yeah. Documentation, nothing. I thought about what my ideal first company would be, other than in terms of how good that company is for developing my skills as a data analyst. I am in the Chicago suburbs right now. I think it would be ideal for me to get a job in Chicago and then commute there for a while, because I don't think there's not enough financial stability for me to sign a lease when I just get a job, when I don't really have the money up front for that lease yet. So, yeah. I think that's just a good financial decision. Yep. And then what my other thing I would like to do is write out my motivation and future plans for data analysis. The reason I made this a task that I want to do is because I felt I had some burnout while I was working on data analysis, and I was pretty sure it was just because I forgot why I was doing it, not because I was working too much or anything like that. So I really want to dig into the weeds of that so I really understand why I'm doing what I'm doing and how I can alter what I'm doing to be more in alignment with my future plans. And that's it. All right. Definitely, I think it's a lower tier. One of my worst recaps, I would say. You know.